So my name is Raveena Tahilramani. I graduated from De La Salle University, the major in accountancy, last 2019. After the graduation, that was the midst of the pandemic. My first job after graduation was remote because of the pandemic. It was for Shell Shared Services. And then after that, I transferred to Shopee, Philippines. So I stayed there for 2 years.
What degree program did you take in Dasal?
In De La Salle, I graduated with a major of accountancy.
So, since you have already mentioned that you worked in Shopee, so what was the position? And for those who have not heard of Shopee, if ever, what do they actually do? Like, how would you describe the organization?
So for those who haven't heard of Shopee, my first question would be why? Shopee is basically an e-commerce platform. So it was really a hit during the pandemic because no one could get out to buy their basic essentials. So everyone had to go and buy online. And the time I came into Shopee, that was still the midst of the pandemic. So I guess I came at the perfect time for the industry or the company. My job there, so I started as a senior analyst for commercial payments. So basically, it's aligned with the degree that I graduated from. Basically, we had to process the payments for our suppliers, and we also had to conduct the reconciliations for different billings that we did. So basically, warehouse fees, back margin rebates, shade discounts, and all other billings that Shopee had to bill the suppliers as well. So I did work on AR, receivables, and AP, payables. I think a year in, I was promoted to team lead, still within commercial payments for FBS. So that was a designated team to do the reconciliations and billings for warehouse fees for our clients who availed of different warehouse services from Shopee. So basically the storage fees in our warehouse in Laguna, and as well as the packing and the shipping. So that's a quick overview of what I did in Shopee. But of course, Shopee is a startup company. So especially when I entered, it was still in its early years. It was still in the process of defining specific roles and responsibilities for different positions, as well as really defining the teams. So sometimes we did break into different teams. So we figured it out along the way. But basically, that's an overview of what I did.
What do you think is the coolest thing you've worked on at Shopee?
The coolest thing I've worked on would be actually just the actual experience of getting to talk to your clients is, I think, one of the coolest things as part of my job in Shopee. So our job entailed for us to talk to different clients, which are multinational corporations, of course, like P&G, Unilever. I think that's the coolest part, like being able to build your network, especially with these big companies in the Philippines, getting to tackle not only the field of finance, which is basically what our major is, but also supply chain, since we did deal with warehousing services and basically Shopee services for storage and fulfillment. So I think that's one of the coolest things ever. Another thing I think would be being able to actually see and visit the Shopee warehouse. So I guess for most finance and accounting jobs in the Philippines, like wherever you may be working at, accounting would seem like a back end job most of the time. Like you're just behind what's actually happening. You're behind the actual operations of the company. So what made this job, this specific job at Shopee cool, is we were not distinctively back office. We were more of middle office, since we, of course, we did finance and accounting work, but we also did a lot of dealings and client management, stakeholder management. And it's a rare position or opportunity you would see for someone with an accounting or finance background. I think that's one of the best things also with our job at Shopee.
That's really interesting to hear since we know it's Shopee by online shopping, and to know more about your role, it's really interesting for me to hear. How did you first find out about the job opening, and can you walk me through the application process?
Okay, so in college, I was really fond of career fairs. All these other universities also would have their career fair. And when you're in your first, second year, or when you see career fairs on the school grounds, you wouldn't mind them really, because your focus really still wasn't on what job you're going to have after graduation. It's more of your internships or your current examinations, current organizational commitments, but not really your job after college. Especially for most courses, I think it will be beneficial for them, especially when it comes to their internships for most degrees. But for accountancy, based on my personal experience, there was a limited option for us. So basically, audit firms and was the one who organized everything for us. So they collected our resumes and submitted to these audit firms. So we didn't really mind the career fairs during our internship days. But for the rest of the students, I guess it would be beneficial. As I was nearing graduation, though, that's when I started to reach out, collect pamphlets, discussing with my friends the tips, what companies to apply to, especially with the degree that we have and the common interview questions. I think it's important for you to maintain a network in a similar industry that you have, because the people that would have experience before you would know which specific companies or industries would be best to take a shot at. After graduation, basically all the application process was online. This was not in the pandemic, this was 2019. I applied to several companies online. For most of them, I did not receive a response. I think it's really inevitable that for some of the jobs that you would apply to, you would not get a response or you would be rejected. That's completely normal, but you just have to keep trying. So I think I applied for 2 to 3 months before I actually got an email back from Shell. So Shell was my first job. I went in for my personal interview in Makati. And before I started the Philippines, the rest of the world was on lockdown. So my first job experience really was remote. And I think that's really interesting because it's difficult as it is to have your first job, to be at your first job. Like the adjustment from college to your first job is difficult as it is. It made it even more difficult because it was a completely different setup. All these experienced or tenured employees were adjusting to the setup from office to work from home. So it's also an entirely different type of adjustment for those that this is their first job for them. So after Shell, I utilized my network as well, LinkedIn, of course. We have LinkedIn to look for job opportunities in order for me to look for my subsequent job, which is Shopee. But I think it's important also that you have target companies in mind already, or you have a list of specific niche that you want to go to, so that you don't get overwhelmed with the job opportunities that you see on these platforms like LinkedIn. But what's great about it is that you would still be open to a lot of different other opportunities. I think it's important to have a goal in mind when you're trying to enter the season, basically, of looking for jobs. And you have to be ready mentally, emotionally, because you will get a lot of rejections. But it's completely normal. It may not be for you yet at the current time. You just have to keep trying and don't limit yourself. Try to explore other opportunities as well.
What do you think was the hardest part of the application process for Shopee?
For Shopee, the hardest part of the application, actually, there was no hard part in the application, if I'm being honest with Shopee. The application process, at least for my experience, was very easy. I think Shopee made it easy for all those who would want to try to work in Shopee. It was just 3 interviews, if I remember correctly. So the HR interview, the manager interview, and another, like the final manager interview. Just 3 interviews. There was no examination when I applied for Shopee, but it will vary from team to team. For other teams, there may be an examination. For my team, at least, there was no examination. That's when the examination started. And they responded so quickly. Everything was like a 1 to 2 week gap. So it was really a breeze, really applying for Shopee. There was nothing difficult about it.
It's good to know that Shopee was like not really a difficult company to apply in, especially for like first time job seekers. What's your single best piece of advice for anyone wanting to nail the application process at Shopee?
So specifically for Shopee, I think it would be important for the applicant just to be confident with their experience. Shopee values all different types of background, and that's what's nice about the company. You may be someone with a lot of experience, like a lot of internships, a lot of positions at these different student organizations. And there may also be someone else who does not have those qualifications. But I think those two types of different people would get an equal shot at the position that they're applying for. But of course, it's still important for you to start building your resume from college. Try to expose yourself as much as you can. But for Shopee, the best piece of advice I could give is just be confident with your experience. All of us each has our own experience, not necessarily pertaining to work or to positions, but definitely we do have some type of experience. Be confident with that and know the role that you're applying to. Because for Shopee, there's a lot of different roles. It's very specific. So you have to know what the specific role will entail. You have to get an understanding of it from the job descriptions. And if not, you could always ask the HR or the manager that's interviewing you. I think that's really important. And I think it's just be yourself. Just be your authentic self. Do not try to fake anything with your background or your experience. Because personally, I think that your interviewer would know if something is not authentic. So just be your best self and be confident with your experience. I think that's my best advice.
Thank you for that answer. So for the next one, we're also curious with the training and learning opportunities that you have for Shopee. Like what learning and development opportunities do you have access to? And how are junior employees supported and mentored by senior team members?
Okay, as per training and learning development, Shopee really values training and learning opportunities. In fact, there's a designated team for it within the human resources team of Shopee. It's really important for them that the employees keep on learning. So as per learning development, there's a lot of different online courses that we can take as employees on the company platform. It can be taken at our own pace. And it's not only for your technical skills, let's say Excel or SQL. There's also different courses or learning opportunities for your personal skills, like your communication, speaking, writing, reading. And those courses may seem like they're not that important or they may seem that they're easy, but we did take them because I think we still can learn a thing or two from these types of courses. Like no matter how advanced you are at Excel, if you take all the basic courses of Excel on the platform, there's still one or two things you didn't know that you would still be able to pick up. So there's a lot of that on Shopee platform. You wouldn't be limited to that definitely. So some of these courses are recurring, some of them will be new. But what's good about the learning team within Shopee is that they make sure that they hear feedback from a different team. So if there's a specific course that your team would want to take, they'd ask you for that and they may arrange a special training program or session just for you. And there's a course or a topic that you would want to see on the platform, well, for everyone. They do their best to implement that, to have that course or type of learning on the platform. I think that's what's good about Shopee. For support that we get from our senior employees, I think Shopee really, there's also a good implementation of asking for feedback and communication within Shopee. So back then, based on my experience, we did have one-to-one meetings and it had to be monthly. But for some managers, it may be twice a month. For us, at least, it was monthly. And there was no judgment in these one-to-one conversations. All the junior employees will definitely be heard. All your opinions, feedback regarding your growth within Shopee will be heard and taken into account for. So I also had experience working as a team lead. So I did have my own one-to-ones in my team. And we had to make sure even the managers had trainings to make sure that we are being able to become effective managers. that we are able to listen to our team members well, and that we know what to say to them, what will be beneficial for them or helpful to them when we receive certain feedback, or how we can further help with their growth within Shopee. So of course, we would also like them to move up the corporate ladder, and their seniors should be doing something to support that goal of yours. So it was really important also for us to have these training sessions to make sure that we're still being effective to the other members of the team. So I think there was really no gap between the seniors and the junior employees. Everyone was being heard, and there was really respect with the opinion of everyone. So in my experience within Shopee, when we had a certain process, it did not matter if you were a junior employee, if you were a fresh graduate, you just started, or if you were an employee who have been with Shopee for 5 years. If we had an idea about how to make the process more efficient, you will be heard, and your manager will assess if whether to implement that idea of yours or not. So there was really no seniority really wasn't more powerful, if that makes sense. There was no power given over seniority. Of course, you had to respect your managers. That wouldn't go away, whatever company that you do go into. But what I'm saying is you were free to give your own feedback. And I think that's really important. You would not realize how important that is, I think, until you get to experience a work environment wherein you were not being heard. I think that's basically a summary of the learning opportunities and the support within Shopee.
That's very nice to hear. What does the work-life balance look like for someone in your role, like as a team lead, and how is the office environment in Shopee?
There was definitely work-life balance. Of course, there would be peak days for work, and it will vary depending on your team. Like, I had friends within the business development team who were in charge of campaigns, and their peak days would definitely be campaign days, double days, like 1 5 5 6 6 7 7. Like, we're all aware of Shopee campaign days. For my team, at least, since we were working with finance and accounting, our peak days were month end, always month end, because we had to complete reports within month end to be able to submit to our finance team. And we had to do most of the billings within like the reconciliations during month end. So the first week of the month always was a little busy for our team, but there was definitely work-life balance. For some days, you might render overtime, but your manager, your team would not force you. You're only bound to do your work from 10 to 7, which was the Shopee working hours. Beyond that, if you feel the need to render overtime, as long as there's a need for it, you would be able to. But if you don't feel the need to render overtime, if you have other commitments, or if you just need a break after work, you would not be forced to do. And I think that's really important because for most companies, overtime is mandatory, especially during peak days like month end. But for Shopee, I did not experience that at all. There's definitely work-life balance. And there was like, even within work, there was balance because we also had these team events within Shopee. We had Halloween parties. We had different like informal seminars as well within our team, like knowledge sharing sessions for different processes within our team. I guess that was a little break for us from work because it was informal, there was games. So in terms of work-life balance, there definitely is. But of course, what's important to note also is you should have boundaries also within yourself when it comes to work and your life. So wherever you may be, in whatever aspect you may be into, whether you're in your career stage or you're still in college or in high school, I think the most important thing is for you to have boundaries with your work or life. Of course, some of us may be fortunate enough for our company to offer that up themselves, have that experience, but you have to assess whether it's something that you value and if it's something that will affect your mental state or emotional state at the time, then you have to do something about it. You have to set boundaries or communicate that with your managers.
Thank you. So, For the next one, since we're already on the office work balance, the how the office environment is in Shopee. So if it's okay, but you can opt not to answer, what does the salary and benefits look like at Shopee?
So my disclaimer will be this was back in 2021. I don't know if this is still the same currently because of course I entered Shopee at its peak, right in the midst of the pandemic. So it's a different situation for them back then versus now. So back then I started as senior analyst. I'll give you a range. It's within 30 to 40. That was my starting salary in Shopee. But I had prior experience before Shopee. So I think that helped also. Sometimes your first prior salary would be the basis for your salary with your next company. I don't know if that's the case for Shopee, of course, but it may be. Just the standard benefits. There was no special benefit for Shopee. We did have our own, of course, we did have medical insurance, the normal number of leaves, which is 30 leaves a year, 15 for annual leaves, 15 for sick leaves. I think that's also one of the things in which that Shopee offered to us, but just the basic benefits that we would see in a normal company.
What are your long-term career plans? So where to from here?
Okay, from here. So currently I'm in the United Arab Emirates. I'm not in the Philippines. So when it comes to my career, I definitely stick to accounting in the finance industry because it is related to my degree, but it is of my interest. It's seen me in 5 years or 10 years, and it's still being in the field of accounting. When it comes to career, currently I am not employed in a multinational corporation, and it's a totally different work experience for me since I'm currently dealing with consultancy and financial reporting, just the first for me. So if given the chance, my career plan would be to try out different niche within the accounting and finance industry. So I've been to AR and AP reconciliations, and then to compliance audit within Shell. For in the future, maybe more into financial reporting, project management, just to explore a bit on what other opportunities we may have and just to determine which niche I really want to settle in or retire in, if that makes sense. I'll try to stay as long as I can, but who knows? If there's an opportunity, of course, we always follow the opportunity. And I think that's basically my career plan.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing that to us. For the last question that I have with me, do you have three final advices for new graduates or like college students out there who are also planning to take on the position that you are in right now or like the position that you had in Shopee?
In Shopee, okay, my advice would be, I think from college, before you even graduate, start thinking on the career path you would want to take. I think a misconception, the career path that you would think of in college would definitely not have to be final. It can change once you actually enter the workforce. But what's important for you is for you to think about the direction that you would want to take. It will give you a sense of direction once you graduate, which specific companies to apply to. So, for example, when I graduated, I assessed, do I want to enter into audit firms since I was an accounting graduate, like the Big Four, EY, PwC, Deloitte, etc. Or do I want to stick to corporate companies, private companies like MNCs, multinational corporations? So it doesn't have to be specific yet, since of course there's going to be a lot that you will discover once you actually enter the workforce. But I think it's important for you to have a little sense of direction once you graduate and have at least target companies or industries in mind. That's my most important tip. As much as you can, try to build on your resume, obtain experience through internship maybe or organizations. It may not always give you an advantage when you enter the workforce, but it no matter what, it's going to be helpful whether that gives you an advantage or not, because you're going to be able to build your network. You're going to meet a lot of people, and that's important, especially as you get older. My third advantage would be try to build on your communication skills. I was really an introvert back in college, but at some point in your career, you would definitely have to step out of your comfort zone, and being able to communicate well is important, especially as you go up the corporate ladder. As a junior employee, it's important for you to give your feedback and opinions over your work, your processes, and of course, as seniors or managers, it's important also for you to be able to communicate well with your team. your subordinates, your team, your peers, and even, of course, your managers as well. So I think communication, wherever you may be, whatever job you may have, whether that is remote or hybrid or in office, you would need communication skills. That's definitely a must. So for my tip, for those who would want to have a similar role as mine, which by the way, I definitely recommend. Shopee is a great company. I have nothing bad to say about it. I had a really good experience in my 2 years of stay. I think the advice that I would give is try to build up your Excel skills. I learned that also in my first job in Shell. So as a finance professional, it's important for you to build up on your Excel skills. You would use it every day. And I think companies are slowly starting to gear towards more automated processes, even in terms of reconciliations. So my tip would also be try to learn SQL, like data management. For example, SQL would be really beneficial for you, I think, especially with the direction that we see right now with the industry, since of course we have to adapt to improving technology, and that's would be beneficial for all of us as well, since that would be more efficient for us. I learned SQL when I was in Shopee, but if I could go back, I'd learn SQL before I went into Shopee. And macro for all the Excel users out there, I think it would also be beneficial, since Shopee as a startup will allow you to build your own processes. It's still in that stage of building its own processes, since there's really a lot of opportunity to automate here to make things more efficient. Really learn that, really learn those skills, I think. And you would take that wherever you go. Once you move on from Shopee and you go to a different company, you'd still take that with you. So I think it's important for you to adapt as well. Even we're not in the fields of technology, even if we're finance majors, it's important for us to adapt as well.